I think this is an experiment we've all wanted to try since our first experience watching an episode of The Angry Video Game Nerd. Oh yeah, I didn't feel like doing the whole nerd outfit, so I'm just wearing the glasses. Yes, this is another video I'm doing about the AVGN, so if you don't know who that is, just hold tight until my next video. This is something I just have to get out of my system at the moment. I've been watching this guy's videos since 2014, and there have always been certain titles that he's covered that I really want to check out to see for myself how bad they were and ask the question, are these games really as bad as he made them out to be in his videos, or was he just playing it up for the drama and the views? I've already played a good chunk of the games that he's reviewed, and there are some I already know that are good games, in my opinion, and there are other games that I know for a fact are pieces of crap. Well, in this video, I cherry-picked 10 video games that I had never played before that intrigued me. So stick around, this is Dancing with Ghosts. 1. Action 52, NES, AVGN episode number 90. The first video game I ever really wanted to play for myself was Action 52. And yes, the confusing It Takes Two by Rob Bass is in fact sampled in the intro of this game, with a selection that does automatically land you on the fifth game, Ooze. I started off with Fire Breathers, and yeah, it's like a two-player game with no second player. This is so fucking broken already. I can see how it would make for a good AVGN episode. After playing through the arduous archive of shitty games packed into this one cart, I have to confirm everything James stated in his original review. These games are basically shitty tech demos of the baseline of what an NES could do. Playability and fun was not a priority on this cart. I guess it was just novel to actually play these games that made for such a great AVGN episode. Though James was certainly not the first person to ever review this game on YouTube, he was definitely the most high profile. Number 2, Lester the Unlikely, SNES, AVGN episode number 96. I don't know why, but I always found this title fascinating. The Super Nintendo is one of my favorite consoles of all time, and I just kind of felt like, at this point, surely they weeded out all of the shitty, buggy games that infected the NES roster previously. As I play this game, though, I realize it's not a game tailored towards the mainstream. That's for goddamn sure. But I don't know if I'd be so quick to call it a piece of shit game. With all of the great games on the SNES, this is certainly not a game that I would spend my time playing, but the controls feel solid, the mechanics remind me of games such as Prince of Persia or Blackthorn, and the concept is kind of super novel. I would venture to guess this game was developed as an experiment for the hipsters in the 90s who want something that wasn't so mainstream, man. And yeah, this was definitely not a game that was targeted for a mainstream audience. I think this was at a time when you could release a game in mainstream outlets like big box stores or shops in the mall that also catered towards a niche crowd at the same time. I don't know who exactly this crowd would be, but I've heard people utter the phrase, Lester the Unlikely isn't that bad of a game. I disagree, but it's not broken at least. With all that being said, I could see how this would be just perfect fodder for an AVGN episode. Number 3, Mega Man DOS, AVGN episode number 139. When AVGN reviewed the Mega Man DOS games, I had no idea these ever existed. I guess that was one of the fun aspects of watching classic AVGN. Once I finally got this piece of shit to run on DOSBox, it doesn't take long before you realize that, my god, does this game suck in every way possible. Firstly, you have to tweak the settings just right out the box to make the game even somewhat playable. Sometimes the game runs too fast. Sometimes you didn't pick the right color palette based on your operating system. Now, this is some old shit. This is some VGA, CMYK, RGB shit. They had to make sure this game could run on every type of monitor. I'm sure the old heads in the comment section are already writing their retort about how, actually, I don't care. This game is not a functional game. For me personally, anytime I had to use a character or control a character only using the keyboard, that shit sucked. Especially since I was already used to the efficiency of a compact video game controller for console games. But even if you had a controller for this game, it would still be inoperable. At first, Mega Man hauls ass and is instantly attacked by two electronic dog things that are very hard to kill. You can adjust the speed of the game, which makes it at least somewhat playable, but even saying that is being a little too generous. Does any of this look like a Mega Man game to you? Yeah, I didn't think so. And who the fuck are these knockoff Microsoft Paint-looking ass robot masters? Also, hope you didn't enjoy those legendary Mega Man chip tunes, because in this game it's all dead silence aside from the obnoxious blaster and various enemy noises. I kind of hate Capcom for tarnishing such an epic legacy of games with this piece of shit, but this was more of a naive time when you could, say, go to a CompUSA store and see, oh, Mega Man for the PC, and think you'd be buying the same thing that was equivalent to the NES, quality-wise, or maybe even better. There were no internet reviews to assist you. You bought this game thinking it was the same quality as any other big box PC game. Life was such a gamble back then. Number 4, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde NES, avgn episode number 2. The angry video game nerd has kind of cut his teeth on forming his brand off the backs of games like Dr. Jekyll and Castlevania 2, since he seems to keep revisiting these games year after year. So I thought playing Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde should definitely be on my list. And I mean, yeah, this is one of those NES games that fucking suck. There's no particular in-game guide that choreographs what you should do through example, which is pretty much what games were before they started adding those obnoxious forced tutorials like in every modern game you see now. Nope, back in the day, the good games just sort of showed you what to do naturally in-game without an obvious hand guiding you. Jekyll and Hyde was not one of those games. It was poorly programmed. It's not a fun experience, and I'm hoping this game was a huge lesson for these individual developers on how bad they done fucked up. Yeah, this game does legitimately suck. You have no idea what you're supposed to be doing, what can hurt you and what can't. And if you take enough damage, then you transform into Mr. Hyde, and you're apparently going backwards in the level with this weird-ass attack that barely hits anything. And trust me, I'm sure it sounds good to at least have a projectile as a weapon, but no, you will die quickly in this form as well. Again, I can see how this would be a good title for James to review, but he has beaten this dead horse so hard it's turned into glue. It's just annoying how he keeps bringing it back up like, yeah, it was a crappy game, you covered it, yeah, move on. Number 5, Sonic 2006, Xbox 360, avgn episode 145. So this game can get fucked. First of all, just wiring up these consoles to be recorded was a real pain in my ass. My Elgato HD capture device seemingly shit the bed, or else I need to download some new software, but it wasn't rendering the screen capture, yet I could still play the video on their built-in player, with no sound by the way, so I had to do a screen recording and wait for the duration of the video to be over just so I didn't have to replay everything all over again, which I had to do anyway because at some point my Xbox just decided that it wasn't going to read the disc anymore. I figured surely me just having the physical console would have made capturing my own footage for this way easier than using emulation. But no, should have used emulation the whole time. That would have been the better way to go. This really makes you kind of appreciate the days back when James Rolfe would actually record footage directly from the original consoles, because there really is a huge pain in the ass factor busting these things out, locating the cables, and hoping that whatever recording device you're using actually still works. Now let's get to the actual game. The controls completely break this game. You're using the two Xbox 360 joysticks to control Sonic and the camera, but the fucking left and right panning buttons on the camera are completely inverted. That means when you try to pan the camera to the right, it goes left, and vice versa. Also, if you get caught in between two buildings, the camera is seemingly blocked from moving by the building itself, so your viewing range becomes extremely limited. And this is just the first fucking part of the game. You're still in the town square at this point. You haven't even gotten to the game proper. You have to talk to virtually everyone in the town to figure out where you're supposed to go. When you finally do talk to this old guy. He gives you some kind of special boots apparently, and then you proceed to go through an almost Superman 64 equivalent of running through rings. The only reason this is such a challenge is because the fucking camera panning is inverted, so it's like you're a drunk driver trying to navigate this character around. Also, the physics make no goddamn sense when Sonic is launched into the air because his body just moves however and wherever it wants. So frustrating. When I got to the first proper level of this game, I almost felt bad for making fun of John during that one episode of Neighbor Nerds.
Yeah, so I was just watching James play the game for, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes or so. And I started to, probably about 10 or 15 minutes into it, I started to not to feel well. And then I realized I was actually suffering from motion sickness. And
when he got motion sickness from playing a video game, which I didn't even think that was possible. Until this fucking game. Dude, just look at this shit. Tell me this isn't just a little disorienting. And this is all without the sound effects and shit going on from my original playthrough. Ugh. Yeah, this game deserved every bit of negative publicity that it got. Good God. I kind of relate to James in the sense that you play some of these games and it really does make you fucking frustrated. I'm not even trying to like mimic his cadences or anything right now. Like, it's just really that frustrating playing some of these piece of shit games. Up next, Virtual Boy, AVGN, episode number 42. If you've been watching this long, you know what the Virtual Boy is, most likely, and all of its many foibles. Outside of the Wii U, the Virtual Boy is one of the poorest selling Nintendo consoles of all time. In this video, James talks about how antisocial this device is, and it's true.
Originally dubbed VR32, would become known as the Virtual Boy. It made use of 3D technology where each eye would see two separate screens and create the illusion of three-dimensional depth. Virtual reality seemed like the way of the future. Just the idea of feeling like you were in the game was an awesome concept, but instead, it turned out to be the grand motherlode of shit.
My brother wanted a Virtual Boy as a gag gift many Christmases ago, and we all tried it out. It was indeed an experience, but the gimmick wore thin quickly. It was literally the 90s version of an Oculus or whatever other wearable you may use now to experience virtual reality. But this wasn't virtual reality. It was a souped-up Game Boy that gave the illusion of three-dimensional gameplay that only one person at a time could experience, with only shades of red to boot as far as any kind of color scheme. The thing gave you a fucking headache and made you sit at such an uncomfortable angle that there was just no wonder why this gadget flopped. James Rolfe pretty much echoes these sentiments in his review, and I can 100% confirm them all to be true. The Virtual Boy is one of the most unpleasant systems to play games through. Number 7, Fester's Quest NES AVGN episode number 42. For whatever reason, this game always stuck out to me in the lexicon of AVGN episodes. Whenever I watched his gameplay footage, I thought, this doesn't look so bad. I think James might just very well suck at playing video games. But then I started playing the game and I realized how asinine so many of the enemies were and how so many of them were just bullet sponges for no reason. The power-ups to Fester's gun didn't do me any favors when, instead of going in a straight trajectory, it started going in this wave pattern. There are just so many instances where you need to get by a certain area, but there are needless bullet sponge enemies blocking your way. And again, I can't stress enough the poor design of the stupid wave gun. There are certain items you need to purchase to traverse underground areas that I apparently had a hard time activating. Deaths come easy, and most of my experience was starting all the way from the beginning. With so many opportunities to have made a good game on this system, this was the game that the developers chose to make, and that is unfortunate. It's not like at this point you weren't aware of Nintendo's first-party hits or even Capcom's glory days on the system, yet you chose to make this. And it probably costs the same amount of money as a Mega Man 2 or Super Mario 3 in the store. Quite unfortunate indeed before the days of internet and honest reviews. Number 8, Pepsi Man, original PlayStation, AVGN, number 168. Okay, so obviously you can file this under James's silly novelty games folder. He seemed to do more and more of these after he ran out of games that legitimately pissed him off as a kid. I think that's why I liked his newest episode of the Metroid game so much, because for the first time in a long time, I felt a whiff of authenticity, because I genuinely believed that James actually played these games and had a lived-in experience with them. Pepsi Man was so far off base from that description that we might as well be living on Mars at this point in relation to James Rolfe and games he actually had real experiences with. This was a stupid, silly game that was only released in Japan that I can only imagine was a Japanese marketing department's idea of what America was like. From the big fat oaf who overindulged in snacks, to the beefy superhero who saves the day, even down to the campy song that runs throughout the entire fucking game. But you know what? This is a fun little game in my opinion. I honestly really enjoyed this game as a budget title that you just dick around with for 30 minutes or so and then put down. No way in hell would I pay full price for an on-rails type temple run game, but for $10 in a virtual shop, why not? I think the ridiculousness of concept is what made this game a hot commodity for YouTubers to talk about at the time. But honestly, this is absolutely not a shitload of fuck, aside from that constant Pepsi Man theme song that played throughout the entire fucking game. 9. Drake and the 99 Dragons, Xbox, avgn episode number 158. Bruh, this game. Okay, so the comic book art style makes it look like it could be a good game, but this thing is a hot mess. It boils down to the ragdoll controls. This dude just kind of shoots wherever, and it's not like there's an easy and efficient way to control him. The jumping is very floaty, which gives the game an almost unfinished feel, like this needs to be a day one patch type thing. Just look at me trying to fight this stupid cyborg thing. There's no reticle, no way to aim, you just kind of hope it auto-locks. And look how they have me running around looking like a bitch boy when this guy is supposed to be some kind of undead mystic badass. This goddamn cyborg is a bullet sponge and took forever to finally eliminate. And this was just the training section at the very beginning of the game that you can't skip. Once you actually get to the real game, it's a complete shit show. The controls feel drunk, as does your character. There doesn't seem to be any kind of weight to your character's body as he just kind of floats around, flailing his arms around in a very flamboyant way with no way of aiming directly at enemies. I know I already mentioned a lack of reticle, but it's even worse than that. You have to rely on this completely broken auto-lock system that works only sometimes. It seems like once you start taking damage, you go from 100% health to death very quickly, which I think is bad game design. This feels like some kind of small indie developer's first attempt at an action game that should have never passed the playtesting phase. This game is every bit as horrible as James Rolfe, Pro Jared, or anyone else who reviewed it said it was. Good lord, this game sucks. Number 10, Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest NES avgn episode number 1. The game that started it all for the angry video game nerd, Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, would go on to be yet another game James rehashed at least 3 or 4 different times throughout the series. Given that info, I felt I had to play Castlevania 2 for myself. See, we were never really like a Castlevania family growing up. I mean, we could have been if someone had just bought one of the games, but you know how it was as a kid. Half the games you got was just shit your parents got you, probably based on the cover art alone or asking some half-witted store employee if the game was good or not. As far as the gameplay, I will definitely admit what a horrible night to have a cursed dialogue box is fucking annoying and momentum breaking. Then of course it turns to night and the enemies are more difficult. Getting knocked back fucking sucks. No game should ever have this mechanic. Literally, what is the thought process behind this gaming mechanic? Like, do you want people to actively hate your game as much as possible? This game is what I like to call NES hard. This is a term that basically means that, yes, original NES games were fucking brutal for the most part. Whether it was the difficulty that made it hard or the shitty quality of life things like no save points, complicated passwords, a low health meter, a time limit, etc. Castlevania 2 suffers from a couple of those things. I don't love the fact that I have to talk to the townspeople. I generally hate this basic RPG element in games. It's not fun reading, and it's even less fun pausing the action to read. Of course, curses can happen in the towns too. Castlevania 2, the only game where, even in a town area, you're still not safe. I obviously didn't put as much time into this game as James did, so I never got to the part where you had to kneel down against a wall for however long until a tornado comes and transfers you to the next area, but yeah, that is pretty fucking cryptic. To use one of James Rolfe's favorite phrases, how the fuck was I supposed to know to do that? I get that this was the first game that James ever reviewed as The Nerd, so I know he must have had some kind of personal vendetta against this game. But aside from his personal vendetta, this game really isn't that bad for an old school NES game. There are way worse games you could have played, such as, I don't know, Fester's Quest or Action 52. So I get why this game holds a great deal of significance in AVGN lore, but I don't really think it sucks enough to keep bringing it up once every fucking 5 years. So, out of the 10 games I just reviewed, I'd have to agree with James that 8 of them are really bad / bordering on broken, but Pepsi Man and Castlevania 2 really weren't that bad. Pepsi Man is straight up kind of fun. Castlevania 2 is Nintendo hard, but not bad. Now, granted, most of the games I just talked about were from the golden era of AVGN, back when his acting wasn't forced and his game selections were still interesting. Aside from his recent Metroid episode, the last at least 100 episodes of AVGN have been phoned in at best or complete cringe fest at worst. Either way, this video was fun to make. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while, but it kept getting pushed back, so here it is! Hope you enjoyed it! And until next time, have a good rest of your night.